So let's officially start our discussion. Like Swati mentioned during the discussion, so what I will do is I will just make a brief introduction about balance of life and Buddhism, wisdom of Buddhism, as Swati suggested. And then second of all, I want this to be a discussion more than a sermon, because when Buddha and the first 80 arahats, when they were preaching in the beginning, we did not do this tradition. We did not do namaskara, panchasila. It didn't happen. So it's part of the culture, it's part of our ritual. But what really happened was there was a lot of discussion. For example, the first discussion Buddha had with the very first disciples is his best 5 friends, the Panchavaggiya Bhikkhu. And when initially Buddha came to them, they did not even want to believe in Buddha, because they thought Buddha has gotten it wrong and Buddha has went on his own way. So they did not want to listen to Buddha, but they just gave him the seat because he was a good person. Siddhartha Gautama was a very righteous person. He refrained from all the negative things, all the bad things. So because of that, they wanted to just acknowledge him, but they did not have ears to listen to them. So what is more important is that we have a discussion. And I also don't like very formal settings. I like people when they are casual, so we can discuss what is really in here in our hearts and then try to find truth with that. So having said that, happy new year to all of you. Like I was mentioning the weather is very different. We had a huge snowfall, and it's about minus 12, or feels like 21, because the lake, there's a lot of wind here. But I hear that Mississauga, Hamilton, there's not much snow. So we started the new year, and I think it's a very good thing that we started this discussion for the new year. But first of all, I wanted to tell a very small truth which we find in Buddhism. Often it is mentioned that Buddhism is a two-truth doctrine. Two-truth doctrine. There are two truths being discussed in Buddhism. The first truth is called the conventional truth, Sammutika Satya. And the second truth is called the ultimate truth, or Paramatta Satya. So there are two things, Sammuti and Paramartha. Now what does that mean? When we look at the beginning of the new year, what is really new year? So often we think that new year, 1st of January, is a truth, and then we based everything on that, and we start working or we stop working accordingly. But if we try to backtrack and see what is really new year, we find that about in 1500, about 500-600 years ago, there was Pope Gregory who came up with the Gregorian calendar. So currently we are using Gregorian calendar in the world in general, but Pope Gregory calculated the Gregorian calendar based on a previous calendar, the Julian calendar. Julian calendar was made in about 46 BC. So one day Julius Caesar thought, well, I need to come up with my own calendar, and let's call this day the 1st of January. So he started a day, and it was a very arbitrary date. Now, why do I say arbitrary? Is because there are certain other phenomena in the world that we have a winter solstice happening on December 21st. We have a summer solstice. We have two equinoxes. We have Purnima, the Poya, full moon days, where the moon comes and becomes the brightest every 29.5 days. So these are natural phenomena that we can see, and we can have definitive periods. Solstice happens every 365.5 days. Purnima happens every 29.5 days. So it's a significant day. But when Julius Caesar came up with the 1st of January, it was a very arbitrary number. He thought, let's call this day January, and he started the calendar. Now, this is a fantastic example of the conventional truth, Sammutika Satya. Now what happens is that if we do not understand that all these truths are not the ultimate truths, some of these truths are conventional, we are also bound by this thing called the conventional suffering. I'll take an example. Now, I'm sure in Nagpur, in Maharashtra, in India, Punjab, wherever you come from, you have different culturally significant days. Where I come from, in Sri Lanka, we have this thing which the Hindus and Tamils and Sinhalese people celebrate, called the Solar New Year, Avrudu, or the Solar New Year season. So Solar New Year is basically whenever the sun crosses over Sri Lanka, from south pole to south, the equator to south hemisphere to the north hemisphere, when we celebrate that. And it's very customary. It's like Chinese New Year or Vietnamese New Year. People buy gifts, people go home, or like Christmas here. So there's a lot of emotional attachment around that incident. And if someone can't buy a gift to the parents, or if we can't be at home for the New Year celebration, he would feel really bad. And the same thing happens with our New Year on January 1st. If you can't go on the 31st night party, or if you can't start the day with the family on the 1st of January, if you are called on for duty, you'll feel really bad about it. But if you again look at the origin of this suffering is based on a truth which Julius Caesar has created out of nowhere. So the conventional truth, if we are bound by the conventional truth, we are also bound by a conventional suffering. Now let's take this even further. As we grow, most of you are in different stages of life, adults mostly. But when we were growing up, we had, as kids, different motivations. As kids, when we were 5 years, 6 years old, it was all about how do we play, how do we eat some candy. And then we became teenagers. It was about our relationships, your first love and all that. So you grow up, come to university, it's about your first job, finishing your degree, and how do we work efficiently, all that. And then you became parents. How do we raise our children? And then you become more senior parents. How do I raise my teenagers, which is an entirely different ball game compared to raising a 1 or 2 year old. And then you become more senior adults. How do I take care of my health? So during each part of this life, you are bound by a conventional reality. And some of you even don't think if this conventional reality really affecting me or not. We are just going with the flow. We are in the race. We are just following the norms and the trends, and we are bound by all the standards which are imposed on us, and then we are bound by all the suffering if we can't meet those standards. Is that correct? So the fundamental idea of Buddhism, or at least Sri Lanka, is famous for Theravada Buddhism, Vibhajyavada Theravada Buddhism, because in China, in Japan, we have a different form of Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, and in Tibet we have Vajrayana Buddhism. So the classical orthodox school of Buddhism in Sri Lanka, for example, Theravada, they are famous for this argument called the Vibhajyavada argument, which is very grossly translated is deconstructioning. So if you deconstruct the truth, you will find if the truth is really truth or not. So the idea of deconstructionalism, Vibhajyavada, is to find out what is the ultimate truth. Now, having said that, I have the greatest respect for the movement Dr. Ambedkar started, for the very reason Buddhism has been polluted with so many ideas from other philosophies which are quite contrasting to Buddhism, and Dr. Ambedkar has found that loophole, has found this issue rather, and then he was trying to do a lot. I recently started reading a lot about the philosophy of Ambedkarite Buddhism, apart from the whole Dalit movement, that Dr. Ambedkar really saw how the religion has changed over the last 2,500 years. So why I say that again, if you ask a typical Buddhist, they would say the concepts of Hinduism, not really Buddhism. They would talk about oneness. Even in the West, a lot of different ideologies are mixed, and people do not understand what exactly is the Buddhist ideology. Now, there's a fantastic sutta, a Jataka sutta in Buddhism called the Dadagga Sutta. I'm sure that you have heard it somewhere. The story is like this. One day there was a rabbit who's sleeping peacefully, and all of a sudden he hears a bang. He gets confused. He's just asleep. He was just dozing off. He gets confused. He starts to think that the world is coming to an end. This is the end of the world. So he starts running. While he was running, he tells his rabbit buddy, "Look, my friend, let's run. The world is coming to an end. The end of the world is coming. The Armageddon is coming." So both of them started running, and then they meet the deer. So they tell deer, "The world is coming to an end. Let's start running." So the deer tells the cheetah. Cheetah tells the elephant. So everyone is running. Now they are approaching a cliff, and there's this wise lion who sees them. He thinks, well, these people are running towards the cliff. If I don't intervene, all of them are going to get killed. So he comes in between in front of the he appears in front of all the other animals and asks them to stop, and asks them, why are you running? So the elephant says, well, the deer was running, so that's why I was running. When he asked the deer said, well, the bunny was running, the rabbit was running, and that's why I'm running. So when he asked the first rabbit, he said, well, I was sleeping and I heard a large noise, and that's why I started running. So then the lion says, well, without running with the flow, without blindly running towards something, let's go there and let's check it. Let's go there and let's inquire. And then everyone goes there, and to see that a coconut has fallen on the ground, and that was the bang noise. So this is a beautiful story. It gives the fundamental nature of Buddhist approach. We are not just going by the flow. We are here to inquire. We are here to inquire about what's happening to the society, but more importantly, we are here to inquire about what's happening to me personally during my childhood, during my teenage years, during my adulthood. Why am I doing what I am doing? Now, having said that, during our childhood, when we are really young, or in our 20s, we don't have that mental setup. The mind is not so conducive to think that way, because it's not the time for self-actualization. That is when we are really distracted with things, distracted with music, distracted with parties, with our friends, with our partners. But when you hit a certain age, some people even call it the midlife crisis or quarter life crisis these days. There's this thing called the quarter life crisis these days. The kids who are about 23, 25, they come to this point and they start inquiring about their existence, which is a very good thing. But the good thing is when you start wondering, what am I doing? Why am I running this race? Then you start inquiring about yourself. So that is the approach of Buddhism. It's not running with the flow. It's trying to understand, deconstruct what is the reality I'm after and what is the suffering which is based on my reality, right? So that's a very interesting approach to Buddhism. And how do we apply balance and wisdom in this, the Buddhist wisdom of balance? Now, again, if you look at it, because I did a lot of physics, I remember this thing. The temperature of a liquid, of something, is defined as how much movement those molecules, atoms has in that liquid. So higher the vibration, higher the movement of the molecules, higher the temperature, and lower the temperature, it will be cooler. So there's this absolute Kelvin 0. That is where all the matter stop vibrating. So that is where the 0 Kelvin exists. Not Celsius, not Fahrenheit, Kelvin. So Kelvin is the absolute temperature measurement. But it's they say it's a very hypothetical situation. 0 Kelvin cannot exist. But what I'm trying to say is, when molecules, matter move, when they vibrate, the temperature goes up. So higher the vibration, higher the temperature. The same way, we have a mental temperature. Your mind can get high temperature or low temperature. That's why I think there's a saying that you say this person is a really chill person, or a Zen person. He's chilled in his mind, or he's having a mind fever. Now, what is fever in mind? What is high temperature in mind? Our mind is also vibrating, and it's vibrating between two extremes. Now, these two extremes can be, you're vibrating between what happened before we start this Zoom discussion, before tonight, before last week, before last year. All these things which happened in your mind can be dragging you that way. It's fine if the mind keeps us dragging that way, but the mind does not stop in the past. It wants to come back to the present or the future. So it goes back and forth, back and forth. Now that is the problem, and that is what keeps the mind temperature rising. So whatever the past incident you had, you are trying to forecast into the future. I'll give you an example. Hypothetical, I came across a dog yesterday, and the dog started biting. Will that dog bite me tomorrow. So you go to the past, you go to the future. Past, future, past, future. So there's a lot of vibration and our mental temperature rises. The outcome of mental temperature is that you are stressed, you are afraid, you hate, or you are unrestful. You lost your peace of mind. So this is only extremes in the realm of time, past, future, or past, present, or present, future. But we can look in a non-temporal dimension as well, likenesses and dislikenesses. Now, every one of us here, we have likenesses and we have things that we hate. We love things in one hand and we hate things in one hand. And our only wish is to keep the things that we love always closer to us and keep the things that we hate in our arm's length or further away that we don't even see. That's the very simple wish of every one of us. We either want to attain enlightenment or we want to refrain from going to the bad realms, becoming reborn as a beaver or a squirrel outside, so it's minus 21 and you're cold. You want to refrain from that. You want to be born as a deity in a more comfortable place. So this is what keeps us going back and forth. We have our attractions and we have our aversions. We can even put a Buddhist word to that, raga, dvesha. Now often we find dvesha can only be hating, but dvesha is not only hating, dvesha is everything, all the aversions put together. Your fear is a dvesha, your disgust is a desha, your hatred, animosity, resentment, they are all in the category of dvesha. We reject it. And the raga is not only, raga often when we recite it, it has a close connotation with the sexual desires, desire for greedy things, taste, etc. But raga is not only that. You can be even desirous for a thought in your mind, a particular pattern of thinking. Now, if we take the political environment, there's conservative and there's liberal ideologies. So one person could be more attracted to the liberal ideologies or conservative ideologies. Even that is raga. And while this is the fundamental nature of our mind, we are in compulsively attaching to something positively or we are attaching to something negatively. Now there's a common word here. We can either attach to something positively or we can attach to something negatively. The common word here is attachment. Is that correct? Imagine there are the people that you love in your life. You love them. And there are people that you do not wish to associate. You want to keep them away from your life. But both of these things are attachments. Either you positively attach or you negatively attach. Now, in a way, it's like we are playing a tug of war. Tug of wars, two teams get to the two sides of the rope and they start pulling the rope. So we are in this tug of war. The tug of war is that we have wishes. Wishes as in we make a wish that I want to have all the good things I believe, I wish, that is all I should be getting. Even when a lot of people come to the temples, they pray, Lord Buddha, please give me whatever I wish for. Please keep me away from what I don't like, from malady, from disease, from all the bad things happening. Keep me away from that. Keep my family away from that. And give me all the good things. So we make these wishes. And we are making these wishes against the nature. So universe is on one hand and we are on the other hand. Or let's say that we can make a wish, we can make a New Year resolution. While we are making the New Year resolution, 8 billion other people are also making their own New Year resolutions. The weather is making his own New Year resolution. So against all that, I am making one wish, and now my wish is based on what I like and what I dislike. Now the tug of war is that time to time I can pull it my way, or the universe or the other 8 billion people pull it their way. So what happens is, most of the time, or 50% of the time, I win sometimes and the rest win sometimes. What happens is, when I win, I'm very happy. When I lose, I'm very unhappy. But Buddhism, what it says is, it's not about winning and losing and being happy or sad. Trying to find out the base reason for this, the attachment. tanha or craving. So the attachment is like if we try to hang on to this rope, tug of war, in the tug of war, eventually the universe is going to win anyway. Like you might want to be the young, rich, wealthy, healthy, etc., etc., but one day you are going to lose all that. You can't win this race. So when you are attaching too tightly to this rope, imagine if you're attaching too tightly to a rope and the rope gets pulled away, your hands are going to get burned. So lesser attachment you have, if you hold the rope lightly, your hands won't get burned. So this is the very simple truth in Buddhism. Attachment is very natural. That is our modus operandi. For us to be happy, we need to attach to something. Am I right? You cannot be happy if you don't attach to something positively. Only when you positively attach to something, you can be happy about it. And when you negatively attach to something, you are unhappy about it. How? When we positively attach to something, that positive person, place, or situation, when it comes towards us, we are happy. When it's taken away from us, when we are deprived of that, we are unhappy. The things we are negatively attached, when they come to us, we are unhappy. When they are taken away from us, when they are gone from this world, we are happy. So that's a simple nature. So often what we find is that the only way we know how to entertain ourselves, be happy, is this attachment. But then Buddhism suggests, well, there's another way that you can be happy without the attachment as well. Now that is the path of Buddhism, and